So if you're experiencing any of these 10 signs, then this is your wake-up call, because you need to pay attention, because what starts as something minor can very quickly escalate into something life-threatening. And your body doesn't always scream out. Usually it's much quieter than that. And if you're drinking regularly, then there's a very good chance you're going to be missing these signs. And by the time you start noticing it, it's probably going to be too late. So stick around, let's go over these 10 things and let me know if you have any of these, because if you do, then you need to stop drinking now. So sign number 1 is frequent urination and thirst. So you're waking up multiple times in the night to go for a pee, you're constantly thirsty during the day. This is no big deal, right? You're just staying hydrated. Wrong. Your body is struggling to process sugar properly. So what is this? This is a sign of sort of pre-diabetes. So what's happening is your body is so out of whack, you've been pouring the sugars into it from the alcohol that your body can no longer cope, and you're going into this kind of diabetic phase. And it's the concentration of sugars in your blood that's causing the nerve endings to be eaten away by these sugars, because there's just an excess in your body. So in order to deal with this, your body is making you pee all the time, because that's one of the ways to get the sugars out of your bloodstream. So at nighttime, your body is making you thirsty because it needs more water to keep flushing all of that sugar out of your body. So that's what's going on. Sign number 2, needing a drink to fall asleep at night. Usually you'll tell yourself, oh, it's just one drink, it just helps me relax. And it sort of seems innocent enough because everybody has their bedtime routine, right? But here is the terrifying truth. What you're doing is you're training your brain to rely on a depressant. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to lead to severe insomnia without the alcohol. And then we start getting into the territory of a kind of full-blown dependency, where if you don't have the alcohol, you can't function. And eventually you're going to need to stop this. And that's where you start getting withdrawal symptoms, which can be as severe as the delirium tremors, which is, seizures, hallucinations, and 15% of people, believe it or not, actually die from this. This is how dangerous alcohol is. So as you can see, you're not just developing a nighttime routine here, you're kind of rewiring your brain to fall off a cliff. Sign number 3 is drinking earlier than you used to. So first of all, it was 8 p.m., then it was 6 p.m., maybe now it's 4 p.m. And at the weekend, hell, maybe it's midday, maybe it's 12 p.m., 5 p.m. somewhere, isn't it? And the thing is, that progression never stops. Now, I've worked with people for years and I've experienced it myself. What'll happen is that time comes down and down and down and down and down. And what's the logical conclusion? Wake up 8 a.m., just a quick drink. And that's when you're absolutely fucked. That's when you're in real trouble. And how do we stop getting there? We stop drinking. We stop drinking now. That's how we avoid that. Because what you don't want is alcohol to tighten its grip on you until it's got a vice-like hold of you, because then you're in real trouble. Sign number 4 is morning anxiety and irritability. This was a big one for me. So you'll wake up feeling anxious and out of sorts until you can kind of settle your nerves. So maybe you're more snappy in the mornings, more irritable. Maybe you're blaming other people for making you angry or saying things that upset you. Believe it or not, this is actually a mini withdrawal that's happening. And you're probably watching this thinking, well, I'm not an addict. I don't drink every night. And how can this be withdrawal if I'm not addicted? Well, believe it or not, alcohol is actually incredibly addictive. And whilst you may not have a full-blown chemical dependency on this, you will definitely have some degree of dependency, especially if you're drinking regularly and the alcohol's leaving your system. Your body wants more of it. It's a very addictive substance. So this anxiety, this irritability, believe it or not, is a very mild withdrawal. You should be aware of this. You should be worried about this. Sign number 5 is making excuses for your drinking. So this is going to be things like, I've had a bad day, I've had a good day, this didn't go well, this went well. So you're celebrating, you're commiserating. There's always a reason to drink. There's always something going on that requires a drink, or you're rewarding yourself, you're commiserating. It could be, there's a whole myriad of things. You know what I'm talking about. Because what you're doing is you're doing these sort of mental gymnastics, which I'll bet you're doing on a daily basis, or certainly multiple times a week, you're doing this gymnastics in your mind to justify your drinking. And basically, you're losing the ability to be honest with yourself. And if you're not honest with yourself, then you can't progress. And that's where the whole program comes in. That's where we can help you with this. So if you want to get out of this cycle, book a call with me below and we'll have a chat. Because if you're not honest with yourself, you lose the ability to save yourself. Sign 6 is going to be mild tremors and shakes and things like that. Now, you might just think it's a sign of getting older or a bit of stress or something like that. Maybe you brush it off as low blood sugar or too much caffeine or not enough caffeine, but it's actually your nervous system that's starting to malfunction. So you'll notice it in places like in your hand, maybe your eye, maybe even your jaw, things like this. So over time, you're going to find that these tremors get worse. Maybe you're holding a glass and you can't hold it properly. And as I say, this is a sign that the nervous system is kind of screaming out from all of the kind of poison that you're pouring into your body. I can actually remember a day when I was signing a document in the morning. I'd been out the night before drinking, as was a thing that I did. And I was trying to sign this document the next day. And it was so embarrassing sitting next to the lawyer opposite me and the other person that it doesn't matter what I was doing, but I was doing something. And I was signing the document and it was just, my hand was shaking and it was just, I then started to sweat and the whole thing was embarrassing. I probably stunk of alcohol as well. So you can imagine the embarrassment there, but I'm acutely aware of this symptom. Sign number 7 is choosing alcohol over other activities. So things like you've started skipping gym sessions, family events, things that the kids are doing, things that your wife or your husband is doing, meeting up with friends, anything that means that you're missing out on other activities, either in order to drink or because of drink. So maybe you've got a crushing hangover and you think, oh, I just can't face doing that. Or maybe you have the opportunity of going to see a friend in the evening for coffee or maybe some dinner, but this is going to get in the way of you drinking. So you cancel on them and you go out drinking instead. This is a huge sign. It's subtle as well. And one, you think, oh, you're just making a choice. No, it's a subtle sign that alcohol is suddenly taking a much higher priority in your life. Sign number 8. This is a big one, and you need to pay attention to this. If you get defensive about your drinking, I know all about this one as well. Maybe you know about this one as well. So when somebody is mentioning your drinking, maybe you get angry, maybe you get upset. Well, everyone drinks. Everything's fine. I'm just having a drink. I'm just relaxing. I'm just winding down. Why are you on my case? Leave me alone. Any of these sound familiar? This defensiveness is your addiction's defense mechanism because it's got to protect itself. You know, I've used the analogy before. It's like a little demon. It's like being possessed by a demon. I'm not a religious person, but the analogy works. It's like a demon inside of you that doesn't want to be revealed and wants to continue what it's doing. So it's going to whisper in your ear, don't let them speak to you like that. You're fine. We're fine. We can do what we want. And this denial, it leads people down a very dark road. It leads to loneliness. It leads to defeat. It leads to broken businesses, broken jobs, broken marriages. It leads to a very dark place, even homelessness. And it's just because they didn't want to listen to people that love them. If you need some help, this is what this channel is all about. This is why I'm here. Book a call with me below and let's see if we can get this handled for you once and for all. Because when you can't have an honest conversation about your alcohol consumption and alcohol use, you've lost the ability to kind of help yourself. And at that point, you do need somebody in your corner. You need somebody to fight for you. You need some kind of, I don't want to use the word intervention because that sounds too big and it sounds like someone's forcing you to do something, which this is, we're not about that here. But you can't objectively look at yourself anymore when you're getting defensive, and you need to kind of get control of that demon inside of you, because we all want the best for you. You want the best for you. So sign number 9 is stomach issues, heartburn, and acid reflux and stuff like that. So again, I had this as well. Because you're pouring poisons into your body, you're destroying your gut health, you're destroying the serotonin and dopamine in your system. And what you find is you have this kind of acid reflux, and you have the stomach acid coming up into your esophagus and into your throat, and is burning all of that skin. What should be digesting food is kind of digesting your esophagus. It's really dangerous. It can lead to much more intense complications, which, I'm not going to go into here, but it's really not pleasant. But it's things like esophageal cancer and bleeding and things like that, stuff that, is perhaps beyond the scope of this video. Also, things like having diarrhea all the time because you're completely topped up with alcohol is not healthy on your gut. It leads to things like colon cancer, ulcers. So sign number 10 is memory gaps and having blackout periods or being very fuzzy about what happened the night before. So you have trouble remembering conversations. Maybe you said you'd do something, but you doesn't remember that you said you'd do it. Maybe you make a promise that you then break. These kinds of things that will erode relationships and trust with. Basically, the alcohol is literally killing brain cells and is therefore disrupting your memory. I know that alcohol specifically affects the part of the brain responsible for putting short-term memory into long-term memory, which is why you can't remember things when you've been drinking heavily, because effectively what you're doing is wiping that hard drive of the short-term memory. And over the years, I've worked with all sorts of people and I've seen how bad it can get. I worked with one guy in his 40s who woke up after a particularly strong drinking session, shall we say, that went on for a couple of days. And he woke up on a Sunday and he couldn't remember his children's name. Damn, you don't want to get there. So there we go. There's the 10 signs. Now, here's a little bit of a reality check, I guess. The terrifying thing about these early signs is they feel really manageable. On their own, they don't feel like they're going to spin your life out of control or completely destroy you. They almost feel like things that you can kind of live with, but every single one of them is like a freight train on a set of train tracks coming towards you. And I've used this analogy before in another video. What you can't do is stand still because the train's coming. You either go left or you go right. You can't stay on the train tracks. And individually, and especially cumulatively, these things are this huge freight train coming down the tracks to you. Now, some people, the train is 10 miles away. Some people, the train's half a mile away. You know what I mean? You'll know where you are on this spectrum. And I'm a little bit of a cautionary tale here because I noticed a bunch of these signs for myself and I didn't do anything. And by the grace of God and a little bit of good fortune and good management on my part, I managed to get out of it. But there was a huge part of luck. Luck and hope is not a strategy, which is why I set up Clear Mind, Clear Life. So yeah, don't make my mistakes. Deal with these things if you see them. So with all of that said, thank you for watching. If you're about to start quitting or you're thinking about quitting, there's a few things that you're going to need to do and need to be aware of. You can watch this video here, which is the 6 things to not do when you're quitting drinking, okay? So click that next, and I will see you in the next one.